Yeah. And people don't want to hear it. Guess what? I didn't want to hear it. But I think that there are some people who are listening who have been curious about this and who have maybe been wondering if alcohol could be the thing that's keeping them stuck or stagnant in their goals, whatever that is. And if that's you, I think that this is exactly what you need to hear right now, is this affirmation that, yeah, maybe give it a try and see what life could be like without alcohol constantly as a center point in your lifestyle.
Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to season 6 of the Suburban Warrior Podcast. It is going to be an amazing season filled with awesome, informative episodes with fabulous guests, because this season of Suburban Warrior, we are focusing on all things health and wellness for women, and especially for women in midlife. You might be wondering why are we focusing there specifically this season? Well, it's really because this is what I've heard from you guys. I've heard from the listeners that these are the episodes that are really making a difference in your lives. And I hear from my clients all the time. And I know the clients that I am working with, we are always talking about all things health and wellness, because let's be honest, health is wealth. And if we aren't functioning at our optimal health, every area of our lives is affected. So this season, we're focusing on all things health: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. And each episode is going to be packed with informative tips that will be able to guide you in really just feeling your best and living your most joyful lives. So let's get right into season 6, because I'm so excited to introduce my first guest, Amanda Kuda. She is an alcohol-free lifestyle expert. She's a holistic life coach, speaker, and author, living, working, and playing in Austin, Texas. As a coach, Amanda helps ambitious, soul-centered women stop drinking and start manifesting the life they deserve and desire. She teaches a modern approach to personal development, self-actualization, and spiritual enlightenment through the lens of elective sobriety. Amanda's first book, Unbottled Potential, Break Up with Alcohol and Break Through to Your Best Life, is out now and is available wherever books are sold. Her work has been featured on CNN, Business Insider, and The Skim. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda.
Oh, thank you, Chrissy, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Same to you. I think this is really just such amazing timing for this topic, because let's be honest, I think we've all I shouldn't say we, me and other people, who are still drinking probably have overindulged a bit at this point. And we're all thinking about, should I be maybe doing dry January? I know that's a topic of conversations with me and a lot of my friends. So I am thrilled to have you on the podcast. I'm thrilled to talk about your new book, Unbottled Potential. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
But I would love to start with you sort of giving us a little bit of an idea of who Amanda is, and, tell us a little bit about your story, sort of how you ended up deciding that you were needing to break up with alcohol.
Yes. Thank you for allowing me to share this, because I think that it will resonate with a lot of people who are normal, casual, average, run-of-the-mill drinkers. So if, just in case you got a little squeamish about an intro about breaking up with alcohol, let me kind of curb your fears, because this is a really important conversation for anyone who wants to live a well life. And I think that being alcohol free has been my personal life hack for achieving all of the personal, emotional, spiritual wellness. And yet I didn't know that that's quite what was going to happen when I started out on this journey. So I'll kind of take you all back to a phase where I was in my drinking days. I was a casual social drinker throughout my teens, 20s, and I ended up going alcohol free in my 30s, which I understand is probably a little younger than most people. In fact, I know it's younger because most of my clients are the same as your clients. They're midlife. And
Yeah.
what happened for me is I started going through what I can only describe as an existential crisis or a dark night of the soul, where it seemed like everything was falling apart, even though on the outside, my life looked really shiny. I was checking all of the boxes. I had the job, I was fit, I was healthy, I had the friends, the social circle, the car, whatever it was that, I was supposed to be doing. I was achieving that. But on the inside, things felt really chaotic and like I was off track. Like maybe I was the main character in a movie, but I was in the wrong movie. And that felt really unsettling because I felt selfish. I felt, like I maybe my head was too big that I couldn't be happy for the life that I had achieved. But there was just this sense of discontent. Like, isn't there something more? Shouldn't I be doing something different? Am I in the wrong career? Am I living in the wrong place? And so I started to make some pretty drastic changes. I started down a personal development path. I started reading spirituality books. I was meditating. I was journaling. I was praying. I was doing affirmations. I was going to yoga. I was going to retreats, you name it. I had started to add all of these positive behaviors into my life. I was tracking, what I was eating. I was doing all of these, great workouts, and nothing seemed to move the needle. So I decided, okay, well, I'll up in my life. Let's see what happens now. I sold my house. I moved from Missouri, where I'd grown up. I moved to Austin, Texas. I got a new job. I started over. And I have to tell you, nothing really changed. It seemed like, there's this beautiful phrase in the personal development world: wherever you go, there you are. And all of my problems, all of my existential crisis, all of my dark night of the soul followed me right there to Austin. And I ended up back in a very similar group of friends in a very similar situation than I had been before. And again, there wasn't anything outwardly wrong with my life. I just felt discontent. And so finally, after about a year living in Austin, thinking that this would be the thing that would change my life finally, I had to do some reckoning with myself. And I had to ask, Chrissy, maybe it's not about me adding all of these positive behaviors to my life or making these like bold changes. Maybe it was about doing something really simple and eliminating a behavior that was suboptimal. And I looked at everything that I was up to in life, and the most suboptimal behavior that I could pinpoint was my relationship with alcohol, which again was very normal, very social, nothing that was causing problems. But I had this sense that it was holding me back. And so, January actually is when I quit drinking. January 2017, I decided I would try and do dry January. It was the first time I had ever even heard of such a concept. And I took a break for 30 days, realized that that wasn't quite enough to see any significant change. And so I extended that break to 90 days, then to 6 months, then to a year. And, Chrissy, in that year, it seemed like everything started to transform. All of a sudden, all of the things that I was implementing that were seeing mediocre results started to see really profound results. And I'm happy to dive into what those are specifically, but just to be a broad sweep, I can tell you that my life started to improve in every way. My life has never been the same. And in the most positive ways, all my dreams are coming true. And so now, today, as we talk, it's been just over 8 years that I haven't drank alcohol. And I've just loved every minute of it. And so that's why I've made it part of my mission to share that with other people who might be curious about this lifestyle.
Yeah. I love that. And in reading your book, because I have gotten into it and then I'm enjoying it very much. I think one of the most interesting concepts is that you talk about, especially right from the beginning, is you weren't an alcoholic. You weren't drinking every single day. It wasn't a physical need. It wasn't, that things were going wrong in your life and you were failing in a bunch of areas because of alcohol. You were a casual drinker, a social drinker. And, I think that a lot of people fall into that category and enjoy or think that they are enjoying alcohol on the weekends when they're going out. And then when you get to a point where there might be that sort of like nagging little thought or there's some discontentment, you don't really go right to alcohol or think about it because it's not something that's like on your daily, lifestyle that's causing problems. So I love that you bring that part of it up to people that might be thinking like, yeah, like they're hating the hangover. They're hating how they're feeling. They're not feeling productive after they drink. It's clouding their emotional state, like all of these things that alcohol does. But people that are just consider themselves casual drinkers put themselves in a category that say, well, I don't really drink that much, so it's okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I even will go so far as to say that, I had seen examples of alcoholism in my life. And so I put in my mind that as long as I'm not that, then I took it like as a responsibility that I just had to figure alcohol out, that I wasn't permitted to stop drinking because I didn't belong in AA or one of the recovery spaces. And so unless that it now was my responsibility to figure alcohol out because I wasn't allowed to quit drinking. It was part of my lifestyle. It was part of how I fit in socially. It was part of a lot of the rubbing elbows type things that I did at work. So I had believed this story, and I'm an intelligent person, but I believed this lie that I couldn't quit drinking alcohol because of who I might become, a social outcast. I might become boring. And I tried everything for that not to be the answer of what might completely transform my life. I mean, literally, Chrissy, I sold my house, quit my job, and moved to a different city thinking that that's what I needed for a transformation. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that I did all of those things because it led me to the life. They were important parts of my path. But I wonder what might have happened if I would have just stayed where I was and quit drinking alcohol. I still think I would have had some pretty profound transformations.
Yeah, I'm sure. But like you said, your path is what is meant to be. And obviously you ended up where you're at for a reason. So let's talk about a couple of things, especially related to quitting drinking, because I think that there are a lot of women that want to because they don't like the way that alcohol is making them feel anymore. But they're also very social beings. And, let's be honest, alcohol is a very huge part of society. It's very social. It's everywhere. So how do people that want to stop drinking, but yet still go out, be fun, be engaging, still go to parties? What are some tips that you have, especially in the beginning, to sort of be able to not have a drink when you're out?
Yeah, I think that if you're listening to this at the first of the year, I think that one of the easiest stepping stones you can do is to start during a month like dry January where there aren't as many social obligations so that you can spend some time, and you do have to invest some time like kind of getting right with yourself and your own self-confidence so that when you go back out into the more social world, the more lively world, you have a little bit of footing under you. I think that can be a really huge benefit. And when you do, I have some both exciting and unfortunate news that you're going to have to reorient yourself to these social situations. And the reality is that I want you to go out and test the waters and see what is it that I actually like? Because what I know as someone who's done this for 8 years and has been helping other women do this, that what's not fun without alcohol probably just isn't fun. And so you're going to find yourself in a lot of social situations where it is rowdy and chaotic and lots of things are happening. And you look around and you think, wow, first you might have a tendency to say, am I boring? Am I not able to have fun? But what I really want you to center in on is no, this environment probably isn't something that is stimulating to you, or maybe it's even worse, it's overstimulating and you're not able to connect with other people while you're there. Therefore, it might not be fun. And that's okay. It's okay to say that. And it's okay to reorient what you do in your social life and how you go about having fun and socializing. But it will be a little bit of an existential crisis because you're going to have to, at whatever age, reimagine what fun is and take the lead in making that happen. Now, the other piece, though, is that you might surprise yourself and realize that you're more outgoing and you actually really do like a lot of the activities and people that you've been around. But you won't know that until you try it. And you have to give yourself a really solid chance to do some research. So my preference is always go out and do the things that you used to do as a drinker. See what it's like to do them as a non-drinker. My prediction is that you'll probably stay out a little less late. You'll probably want to go home a bit early because you're not numbing your senses to any overwhelm or exhaustion. And I also know that you're going to find new fulfilling ways to experience your social life. So my big overarching thing is go out and do experiments. Expect yourself to be disappointed in a few places and expect yourself to be surprised in a few places. I want you to just go into it with an open mind and allow yourself to see what things are like and make judgment calls from there.
I love that. Okay. So a question for you. Do you have any tips for when you're actually in the social setting and people are constantly like, do you want a drink? What can I get you to drink? Do you want a drink? How about a drink? What are you drinking? What are you drinking? What's in your glass? Wait, you're not drinking? Why are you not drinking? Right? Like the constant barrage of questions that everybody has when maybe you're not holding an alcoholic beverage.
Yes. Well, I want you to first remember that these questions and the nature of the questions and the delivery of the questions is more about the other person and maybe the discomfort that they start to feel when you share that you're not drinking and less about you. They're not judging you, they're judging themselves. But that's really hard to discern in that moment when maybe you feel a little uneasy. The more positive thing, though, is to remember that when someone asks, can I get you a drink? They're not asking for your life story. So you actually don't have to tell them, hey, I'm not drinking right now, and give them this long sordid tale about how you're doing dry January or whatever. You can just say, yes, I would like an iced tea. I would like a club soda. I would like a whatever it is. Or you can say, do you have anything non-alcoholic? They're not asking for an explanation. They just want your drink order. Now, if they follow up with an explanation, I think it's really important to have a very grounded, very quick, very easy kind of go-to script in your back pocket. And for me, I like that script to have 3 different things. I like it to have just a statement that's said with authority. I'm not drinking right now. I'm not drinking during January because I'm doing dry January. I like it to have a time frame. So I'm not drinking for the next 30 days or through January. That like makes it easier on your nervous system and on the other person receiving it, because it's not, we're never drinking together again. And then they freak out and start asking weird questions. So it makes both of you a sense of calm. And then the third part, I think, is the most important part. And it is an inarguable reason why. And usually that's something internally focused. So a lot of people will try an excuse. I'm driving, or I have, I'm on medication, or I have to get up early. Great. That's a problem for the other person who's already uncomfortable that you're not drinking to solve. So instead of giving them a problem to solve, I want you to give them an inarguable reason. I don't like the way it makes me feel, and whatever that is for you. And I'm testing out what it's like to not drink. And just giving them that is giving them less ammo to work with. And if someone pushes back on how you feel, then I would say that they're maybe not the most considerate friend. And that's something to reevaluate. Most people are not going to push back on that if you use that kind of 3-part formula, a statement said with authority, a time frame, and an inarguable reason. They're going to just go along with it because you've not given them any questions to ask. And I think that if you can approach it with that kind of in your back pocket, you will really squelch any uncomfortable conversations that you've been fearing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's great advice. And I do love that it's January right now, because I do think for whatever reason, saying you're doing dry January is totally acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. And people have less questions about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you can say you're just doing dry January and people will be like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So I think it is a great time, to start to maybe consider that. Mm-hmm. Another thing I think that you talk about in your book, which I think is a really important point, is, and again, speaking about time frames, is that, you talk about when you started down this path, you went you decided, well, I'm not going to drink for 30 days. And then after 30 days is when you decided, well, maybe I'll make it 90. And then 90 turned into 6 months and so on. Don't you think it is important for people to go into, maybe not having a drink with a certain time frame without believing that, okay, I'm never, ever going to have another sip of alcohol again, and putting all of that pressure on themselves?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like saying never, or I'm going to do this forever, is going to just create a freak out in your nervous system, because then you'll start mind mapping and catastrophizing. Well, what about what about if I ever go to Italy? Well, half the people who are thinking that don't even have a trip to Italy, or maybe even a passport to get to Italy. Right. And so it's just, we start like catastrophizing all of these situations that might be really dismal without alcohol. So instead of doing that, I just want you to give yourself a reasonable and achievable, yet still challenging time frame that you might consider that this is a non-negotiable. And you're going to do an experiment and see what happens no matter what. There's no special occasions in this time frame. In order for you to have this experience of not only what is it like to navigate the world alcohol free, but from a physiological standpoint, especially as, women who we're all aging and our hormones are changing and our bodies are changing and our body metabolizes alcohol much differently as we age, let alone much differently than men. So how can we give ourselves the physiological and the psychological and spiritual experience of having our vessel free from alcohol? And unfortunately, if you've been drinking at a consistent and regular basis, 30 days isn't enough for you to see the results from that, because the effects of alcohol have kind of a half-life. So you really have to give yourself a solid runway to start seeing those effects. And though it's hard because every body is different, right? I can't do a across the board consideration here, but usually 90 to 100 days is when most people will start to see some of the more substantial effects. Now, your life isn't going to be rainbows and butterflies in 90 days, but I think if you can commit to something a little longer like that, you're going to actually start seeing some really, really interesting benefits.
Okay. I think that's great. And I agree. What about though the people that say, well, I'm gonna not drink this weekend. But then next weekend, I'm just going to have a couple drinks or whatever. Like, they're bargaining with themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the bargain with your own, because, like you said, there's no problem. No one's telling you not to drink anymore. It's just the bargain with your own mind, because alcohol doesn't make you feel great anymore and you know it, but yet you still are bargaining like why and rationalizing why it is you should drink. So what do you say to those people about
Well, first of all,
drinks?
I say I was right there with you. I tried for probably a year, maybe a year and a half, to find this more moderate relationship with alcohol. And I will say that even as someone who didn't have a problem, it was just really difficult because I was always making these rules for myself. I was always trying to, like you said, bargain as to when I would drink, when I would not, and, moving around pieces of the puzzle to make this work. And because at the end of the day, what I wanted was this better life. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel motivated and inspired and, in alignment with my life. Drinking every now and then just pulled me. It was like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And so that bargaining really started to get frustrating because I wanted to see the transformation, and the transformation I wasn't allowing it to happen. And so what I would explain to anyone who's kind of having that bargaining experience is that, and this is not, please know that I'm not a doctor. This is my armchair expert explanation of kind of how alcohol is processed and like the half-life that I discussed. Like, imagine your body is a funnel, and the top of the funnel is your body's capacity for alcohol. And then the bottom of the funnel is how your body processes the effects of alcohol, right? Well, you can put a lot more in the funnel than the funnel can process. So the problem is that if you do not allow that funnel to fully empty, you're just basically going through the process of, for lack of a better word, withdrawal. Even though it's not like an addict's withdrawal where you're having the shakes and all of those things, you're going through this process of your body trying to free itself of, unfortunately, a toxin. Alcohol is a carcinogen, and you're requiring your body, even though it's not as much as you were doing before, but you're requiring your body to process this toxin, which means you're not going to be able to get the maximum effects of any other process that you're doing. So if you're on some sort of hormonal treatment, if you're doing, if you're working out, if you're eating well, if you're taking vitamins and supplements, maybe you have an autoimmune disorder that you're trying to work through, none of those things can be prioritized in your body when your body is prioritizing alcohol. So the only way to keep your body from frequently prioritizing alcohol is to take it out for a significant period of time. So yes, while drinking less or drinking more infrequently is going to be beneficial, you're not really going to see the benefits on your body until you get it completely out. And that doesn't mean you have to quit drinking forever, but I also think that you're just not going to see any really impressive results unless you take a significant break.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes total sense.
And people don't want to hear it. Guess what? I didn't want to hear it, but I think that there are some people who are listening who have been curious about this and who have maybe been wondering if alcohol could be the thing that's keeping them stuck or stagnant in their goals, whatever that is. And if that's you, I think that this is exactly what you need to hear right now, is this affirmation that yeah, maybe give it a try and see what life could be like without alcohol constantly as a center point in your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I mean, it's a question I ask myself all the time.
Uh-huh.
But because and I want to talk about this because my relationship with alcohol, same, very social drinker. In my late 20s, though, was when like the switch flipped for me. And I
Mm,
was like, whoa, like couldn't, waking up a lot more hungover. In my 30s, mid 30s, I really had bad reactions to wines. I would
mhm,
like break out. I mean, so I have evolved over time to the point where like for me, what works for me, I can only really drink hard alcohol with like a club soda or something because like everything else I sort of react to. However, once you hit menopause, and I started perimenopause in my early 40s, around 43, everything changes, and how you metabolize alcohol and how it affects your body is very different. And I hear this from friends, I hear it from clients, I hear it from every woman really who is around my age. I mean, actually, that's not true. There are some women that I think can drink and drink and drink and have zero effect and are, in their 50s and they're fine and whatever. But I think that's a very small percentage of women.
mhm.
So why is it that you think when women, especially women in midlife, start to develop this different relationship physically with alcohol? It's like you can tolerate it and it works for so long. And then all of a sudden it starts to feel like it's not working. Why is that?
Mhm. Our bodies are changing, and I think that we start to, if you look across the board, like everything is like your
Yeah.
appetite is decreasing, even I've been noticing over the past couple of years that I'm eating so much less because my body isn't, needing as much food to do all of the things that it used to do. And your skin is changing. Everything is slowly starting to change. And in a very beautiful way. Like I think aging is a beautiful process. And if you really want to come in and disrupt that process and make sure that you're not aging vibrantly, put alcohol frequently into the mix because you're really what I was trying to explain in the kind of last question that I was answering is that alcohol, because it is a toxin, it disrupts every other single vital process in your body. It affects you on the cellular level, all of your organs, everything. And it's completely indiscriminate as to what it affects. So you're going to really just be messing with all of your biological processes, bringing alcohol into the picture, which is why you start to become, you do start to become less and less tolerant of it. You can drink less and less, and kind of like you were saying, that the effects of it, even when I was kind of in that same space, the less I would, even though I was drinking less, I was still getting these like really gnarly hangovers, and I'm like, what
Yeah.
is happening? And so if you're starting to feel some of those things, it can be very normal to try and figure out how to make alcohol work for you. My personal solution, even though I will tell you, I'm making it sound so easy. Like I just like snap made the decision and I stopped drinking alcohol. No, I really reckoned with it. I didn't want
Yeah.
that to be my path. But once I finally decided, well, hell, what's there to lose? I'm going to give this a try. I felt so good that I no longer wanted to try and find out a way to manipulate the system to make alcohol work for me. I just decided, like, yeah, there's going to be some things that are different without alcohol, but I feel so good and it feels good to feel good. And I didn't even know that my baseline could be this high because I thought that normal was feeling a little lackadaisical and tired all the time. And then when alcohol was out of the way, all of a sudden I was operating at full capacity and that just felt so good. And so I think that, if you are someone who is kind of starting to experience some of those perimenopausal and menopausal effects, that if you're feeling like, this thing could be slowing you down, that you are not alone. I have a ton of clients right now who that has been the story of kind of how they got to me. They realize that this is not how they want to feel in life, and that they're willing to try and make a little bit of a lifestyle change and remove alcohol as part of an experiment.
Yeah. And that is something that I've heard from a lot of women who have stopped drinking,
Mhm.
that, it takes time, but that you really don't, once you get to the point where you feel so good that you really aren't interested at all in even
Yeah.
having a drink at all.
Yeah.
It's just not even on the radar anymore.
Mhm.
Because like you said, you find a new baseline and you realize where it's at. So I want to go back to something that you talked about in the beginning when you were telling us your story. So can you just share some of the aspects about your life personally that you feel changed in such a significant way when you went alcohol free?
hmm So on the physical level, I had more energy. I was sleeping better. My skin was clearer. I was able to, when I first stopped drinking, I was working out like 5 or 6 days a week. Now, granted, I was 8 years younger at this point. So I'm getting up at the crack of dawn, going to the gym just because I felt so good in my body and my body was recovering so quickly. And so many amazing physical and I would say some somewhat superficial side effects, but amazing physical side effects. Mentally, my emotional resilience and my emotional mood improved in ways that were so intangible, but also so profound. I think that as a drinker, I approached the world with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, maybe a little pessimistic or a little bit of like, I gotta watch my back. I better wait for the other shoe to drop. And I don't like that about myself. And it was just something that was kind of stuck within me. And alcohol was perpetuating that stuckness. And the way that I handled problems or adversity, I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress and was probably on the edge of depression, even though I wasn't quite there. But I certainly wouldn't say that I was happy. And all of a sudden, not just because alcohol is out of the way, but also because of the other emotional and psychological resilience practices I built up, I feel my baseline is happy. And with the way that I respond to stress and adversity and anxiety and grief and all of those things, it used to throw me off kilter for days, if not weeks. And I would have these downward spirals. And now I'm just kind of like, oh, well, that happened. Cool. I know how to handle that. And before I just didn't even have any self-belief that I could handle what life threw at me. And that just feels like a really powerful space. Spiritually, I have really tapped into my own intuition. I feel that I'm no longer outsourcing my identity, my decisions, where I'm going in my life. I know who I am and what I'm doing. And before, if I'm being honest, Chrissy, I was kind of just following the crowd and doing what I thought I was supposed to do, whatever was good, right, and popular. And I didn't really have a true rooted sense of authenticity. And so tapping into my own intuition and who I am and who I'm meant to be and kind of shedding those layers of masks that I had built up felt really good. And that also allowed me to have a connection to kind of a physical power beyond my physical sight, whatever that looks like, for everyone. For me, that felt very, very grounding and very peaceful and very hopeful. And then on a professional and broader personal level, I have to say that within a short period of time, probably within the first 5 years of being alcohol free, that most of the dreams, the big someday win dreams that had been on my heart started to materialize in rapid succession. And truly, I have to say, like, all but maybe one or two of my existing wildest dreams have come true and in really quick time with really great ease. And that felt so good. I mean, I not only wrote a book, but got a book deal with a major publisher, got the exact agent that I wanted, even though I was what I would say is grossly underqualified to work with him, and was able to, just realize so many dreams that had been on my heart as maybe someday possibilities into quick realities. And those things all just feel really tremendous and powerful.
Yeah, that's really wonderful.
hmm Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all that because, I think that it's hard to see what could be,
hmm
sometimes when you're wondering like, should I try this? And that's why I think that if there are people out there that are struggling or that are thinking, and if they have that nagging thought, like, should I stop? It's really about taking it one day at a time, right? And setting a goal for yourself, like a dry January or a 30-day goal or whatever feels right for you. And taking it one day at a time because, with anything in life, you don't know what the possibilities are until they start to come,
hmm
and so you sort of have to dream big and stay in that outlook of positivity and abundance thinking and be there and then just wait and watch and see how everything begins to unfold. So it's helpful to hear your story and sort of what you went through and all of the big dreams and everything that started to fall into place for you once, just removing alcohol from your life.
Yeah. Thank you. And I want to throw in one more piece that I didn't say because
Yeah.
this is actually the piece that most people are terrified of is their social and their romantic life. And as someone who was kind of a late bloomer, kind of a awkward, ugly duckling, didn't fit in with anyone as I grew up, alcohol had really been a central point that I used to come out of my shell. It was one of the things that I used to socialize and be, become the life of the party that I didn't think that I had the power to be on my own. And as someone who always really coveted that and very much worried who I would be without alcohol, I have to tell you that my relationships have transformed into something that is very vulnerable, very authentic. And when I look back at the relationships I had as a drinker, they were all quite surface level. They were mostly acquaintances and numbers in my phone versus the friendships and the relationships I have now that are all very rooted, all very grounded, and truly have some of the most beautiful, supported, and connected friendships that don't revolve around the social life that I used to have and I used to admire. They're all so different and beautiful and profound. And if I would have only known what was available to me back then, I wouldn't have hesitated for a moment to make that change because everything has just improved so drastically that it's just really inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So, okay. So tell us a little bit about, I know that you have a 21-day challenge that you offer. Tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. This would be really great for you if you are considering doing dry January and you want some thought exercises and some accountability to kind of help you get through that first stage. It's a companion to the first part of my book, but if you're maybe not someone who is ready to go out and buy a book quite yet, I would love for you to do that, first of all. But if you're not quite ready to buy the book, you can go to amandakuda.com/challenge and enter in the code box. It's going to ask for a code that proves that you purchased the book. I'm going to let you bypass that and just use the code Warrior for this podcast. And you'll get in and you'll get every day for the next 21 days, you'll get an audio lesson by me, some inquisitive questions to journal on, and some different prompts and soul assignments, basically, that are going to help guide you through, is this the decision that I want to make? What could this mean for me and why? And it's really just going to help you with the thought process of, we're not just going to abstain because that's wonderful, but if we can take it beyond abstaining and start to understand our relationship with alcohol and what we want out of life, and if alcohol is contributing or detracting from that, you can start to make some really powerful decisions. So my intention with the challenge is to give you the tools you need to make those powerful decisions.
That sounds amazing. And thank you so much for offering that to my listeners. And so guys, I'll remind you again at the end of the podcast, but it's the code Warrior. I want to ask what do you say to people that, want to do the 21-day challenge or want to do dry January or take 30 days off, but then they say they're going to do it and then 2 weeks and they have a drink or two or whatever. What do you say to those people?
The first is that's normal. I wish that I would have been tracking my journey of how many false starts I had before I realized what I was up to. Because during dry January was the first time I really conceptualized taking a break and really working on this habit. I want you to know that it's absolutely normal. Alcohol is a habit that has probably been in your life. Like, let's say that you are midlife, 10, 20, 30 years. And so it's a hard habit to break, especially because we have so much social cachet basically around it, so many pressures around it, so many ways that we romanticize it. And it's like ending a kind of crummy relationship that's not abusive, but it's also not the best relationship for you. And all your friends can see it, but that you could, be thriving without this relationship in your life. And yet how many of us have gone back to or tried to make it work with a lover or a partner that just wasn't for us in the end, but we had to come to that decision at our own time. So I want you to know that you too have to come to the decision in your own time, and doing things like this challenge or reading the book is going to help you with that mindset shift. But to be patient with yourself, but also not to let yourself off the hook. Because if this is a dream or a thought or a curiosity you have on your heart, you're always going to wonder what could be unless you give it a really solid shot. So I would say reflect on what caused you to quote unquote slip up. What were you trying to outsource to alcohol when you had that change of plans? And what could that mean for you? How could you inner source that the next time and figure out how to solve that problem without alcohol? And when you figure that thing out and you make the bold decision to do it, you're going to have a powerful new superpower that can take you through a lot of things in life. So really just asking, okay, hey, what was I trying to outsource to alcohol in that instant? How could I find the courage and the belief in myself and the tools to get that thing on my own? And am I willing to give this another try? And I think that if you do that self-reflection, you will have some, like I said, just some really powerful insights.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love those questions to ask
Mhm.
yourself. Those are
Yeah.
really phenomenal questions that will really help you dig deep about sort of why you're making the decisions that you're making. And really, at the end of the day, it's like, to your point, we have so many habits and so many daily habits, weekend habits, just things that we do in our life that sometimes we just never really reflect on and ask why we're doing it. So I think this is a really great time. It's January. It's time to maybe just ask the questions. And again, just really look inward and assess what are some of the actions that we're doing in our lives that are making us feel great? And what are some things that we're doing that are not making us feel so great? And if alcohol is one of them, then what can we do to start switching that up? And what does that look like? And Amanda, your book, Unbottled Potential, is awesome. And I really do think it's a great read for anyone starting to consider going alcohol free. Especially, for the casual drinkers out there that don't believe that, alcohol is a major problem in their lives, but just feel that it's just something that's not fitting in like it used to. Unbottled Potential is a fabulous book. And I say, let's all do the 21-day challenge.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Why not? It'll help us be more introspective, focusing more on what we're putting in our bodies, why we're putting it in our bodies, how it makes us feel. And it's an amazing offer that you're giving us. So guys, you go to amandakuda.com and enter in the code WARRIOR for the 21-day challenge. And she's offering it to you free without the book. Although I do encourage you to get the book. It's an awesome read. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Amanda. I am so wonderful to meet you. And it was so great to have you on.
Thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate you giving me some time with you and your audience today.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story so vulnerably and being open and honest with all of my listeners. And guys, you can find Amanda at amandakuda.com. We're also going to link all of her socials and everything in the show notes, and as well as the 21-day challenge. So you'll be able to find her. So thank you so much for joining us for this amazing episode. I'll be back next week with another amazing warrior story for you. In the meantime, warrior up, believe in you, and I'll see you next time.